Welcome back to the 200 Challenge. This is episode 166. In the last episode, we found how to take out 34 kilos of interior and stuff from the inside of the cabin out of my Porsche 964. In this episode, we're stripping out wires and electrical connectors that we don't need for what we're going to do with this car here. Also going to strip out some metal brackets and mounts on the inside of the cabin. See how much we find today. As they built the 964s, they put wire harnessing in for all of the available options. This means that there's really a lot of wires available in the harnesses that you will never need. This is how one of the main two strands, the other big main strand, is over there. It is hundreds of cables in here. It's really a lot. So for example, this car is not a convertible. It still has the contactor here fully wired up for the convertible. This car does not have cruise control. Still has the cruise control wired up here. Some of this is stuff that I will never use on this car. This is for the power seats, which I will never use. This is, I don't know what this is. This is for the electric maneuvered spoiler, and this is the backup controller here. That is. It's all going out. Easiest is to just strip this gluish tape off of the harnessing and redo this later, because I reckon that I'm going to take about 2/3 of the cables out of these anyway, and the way they look, they're just full of this residue glue. And by the way, I decided I'm not going to take all the glue off on the inside. It is just mental how much work it is getting all of the glue off in the inside here, and I don't think I'm ever going to get it to look really nice if I don't blast the whole thing once I'm done with everything on the inside and then paint it properly. So that's what I'm going to do. So, weaponry. PP, of course. This one, pretty good. This one, wasp, very important. Different kinds of ways of cutting and stripping wires, good. However, this is what I wanted to show you. This, don't even think about doing this job without knowing how to read this. This is the factory manuals, with the workshop manuals for the Porsche 964. They're really good. They seem to be very accurate as well. So I wouldn't dream about doing this job without having this and really having studied this a little bit up front. Good luck. One of these jobs that it gets worse, and it gets a lot worse before it starts getting better. You pick everything apart, and then you're starting to trace down where the various things end up. A lot of it goes down here in the middle, primarily for the electric spoiler. A lot of it just ends up here. You pick out kind of one by one and then tear it out. It doesn't feel like this is working that well. I got some of it off, but there's so much that goes to the end and to the engine compartment of the car that it's really difficult to make sense out of it without really starting from that end. So I'm gonna give up here in the main cabin and then restart over in the engine compartment, take the intake out so that I get some space, and really start from the end of the strands and then work my way back. I have managed to get some of it out, so as you can see, there's quite a lot of it. Figured out that there's a lot of cables that really end up back here somewhere. Things that go to the old electric spoiler, or the fully harnessed cruise control that I've never had on my car. There's cables going to where the AC compressor used to be, or it's never been on my car. It's much easier to go after this if I take the intake out. Actually, I should really have taken the engine out, but I'm going to leave that for later. This was kind of the quickest way to address it as it stands right now. So I've managed to take some of the things from the electric spoiler out. I'm going to loosen all the clamps around here so I can access the harnessing a little bit easier. And then I'm actually going to go after this little electric box here on the side, since I don't think I'm going to need this at all anymore. So we're in the back of the car. This is where a lot of the stuff from the harnessing of the cabin actually ends up in one shape or form. The engine harness ends up with these two little funny guys here, One is the injectors, the other one is more sensory, and you got some signals from the alternator, oil pressure, oil temperature, some stuff that you obviously need. I'm going to be changing the entire engine harness, so this is going to go into something that looks a little bit more like this. This is my ignition plug right now, so I'm going to go for something more of a motorsports connector there as I go. What you also have in this guy here is you have the defroster, you have the relay for the fan that sits here typically. You have the relay also for the compressor, which I'm not going to have any of this in my car. The defrost, the windscreen is going away because I'm going to go for a flush windscreen at a later point. So I'm thinking this whole thing, I don't need this at all. So if this goes out, it's going to be a lot easier to take everything else out here, because the harnessing comes from here, and then it goes this way here, and then it goes into the cabin. I've got a new lunchbox here. I want to show you a little bit how it comes together in this part here. This is under the driver's seat. So this is typically where you would have your ECU, your Motronic. I have an aftermarket ECU, a Max ECU that is connected to the original harness in here with a little adapter that I made. It comes together pretty neatly here between the instrumentation in the front, the tachyometer, the check engine light, and whatever it might be. This sits on a sub harness that goes to the front with two connectors here, and this connects to the engine harness. Engine harness comes in from where the Motronic sits under the driver's seat, and then it branches off and goes back and comes in over the top to all of the stuff that has to do with the idle control and everything that is on top of the intake manifold. So I've managed to pull it out here. I might actually be able to just wiggle this guy out of here now. It's a pretty big guy. Okay, there we go. First harvest of the day. Now that the engine harness is out, it's much easier to see how it's all connected. And it's really very simple. You have one little sub harness on that side, which has the oil level sensor, and it has the lighting for the rear lights. It also goes around this side, and it comes over on this side for this rear light here. It would be very easy to just redraw that one to this side here. This 14-pole connector, it has some of the sensory that I believe is more well suited to go together with the engine harness. It also has some 12 volt and stuff to power this stuff here. So this is all going out. Yep. See, cruise controller. I'll just cut the whole thing instead, and then I'll just pull the wires from the other side. So another way of doing it, cut this guy out from the other side, and then I just take these colors here and I find these colors here. So like yellow and blue. Here's yellow and blue. And voila. And the more I take here, the easier it's going to be to pull it from the other side. Yellow and green. There's yellow and green. Okay. There's that one. So with that, I've stripped out the cruise control, and it's one less thing to worry about. And now with so many of the cables taken out, it is even easier to strip the rest of this. So it's not so much left here. Rather than going through this cable by cable, since I've decided that really the only thing I'm going to keep back here is the cables for the lighting, everything else is going to be new, then I might just cut all of this away. The only thing of this that I need is like the oil pressure sensor and stuff like that, which I was going to route the other way anyway. This is one of these things that I know I'm going to regret this, but it's quite an easy thing to do right now, and it would be really neat if I put everything together on one harness later on. So let's do this. And we've just harvested this. So finally I realized that I'm doing all of this work just to keep a few cables for the tail lights, the license plate lights, the backup light, brake light, and so on. And you know what? It takes me like half an hour to pull those cables. So I'm taking all of it out. So this means this huge braid here with everything. There's no point in really trying to wiggle all of this out. Only thing, and I'll probably change my mind on this later as well, the only thing I'm keeping is the sensors for the cables for the ABS sensors. So that's how to strip wires out of the car. Just cut them. Under the dash, the harness coming from the back goes up into the main branch here. This has a really weird layout where it's casted into some kind of rubberish housing here, so it's really, yeah, it's quite difficult to make sense out of this. The central electric is where everything comes together. You have most of your relays, your fuses and whatnot here. This one is made so that you can take it up like this, and all of these cables that comes from the inside, they come up here and they come up to connectors. These are all labeled, like this one is H, this one is J, this one is K. So it's pretty self-explanatory what goes what. There's a little holder bracket here that you need to pull out to be able to pull these out. So to really make sense out of this, I'm actually going to disconnect all of these and lift this whole thing out and strip it for the things I'm not going to need. Again, typical example of what they did when they made this harnessing. This is the Relay 14. This is for the AC blower. This car's never had an AC, and nor will it ever have one. This is fully wired to all the connection points in the car, and this is a lot of stuff. This comes together, and it's pretty obvious how it comes together once you disconnect it. You have one really large harness here, which goes into the cabin, goes to the instrumentation, goes to everything towards the rear. There's a lot of this stuff you don't really need, and a lot of it that is just fully wired if you would have that option in your car. There's two other harnesses. One is really the main power harness that comes from the ignition lock. I think it's this one here. No, it's not. It's one of these small ones. And then there's a harness that goes to the front that goes to the ABS relay and the oil cooler relay. Trying to get the main harness out of the central electric is quite a task, and as I'm going through this, I'm seeing that the German engineers must have had really small hands to be able to assemble this. For example, the alarm unit, the car alarm unit, which I won't have after I'm done with this car, it sits in here, and this is how tight it is to try to get that out. Loosening up all the connections here and untying the little sub harness that goes to the alarm. I'm ready to try to pull this harness up. This big casted piece here that encloses most of the harness. This is bolted in place in a few places like this. Let's try to pull it out. As you can see, this is a real anaconda here. Wow, look at that. Look at this. This is a good time to have a look at what we've taken out of the car, because that task is finished now. Slippery slope, ended up with just taking a few cables out. I took all of it out instead, and I'm going to replace it for something more modern. This is the first part of it here. Rear electric. This has the fogger. It has the relays for the AC and the rear fan. Not going to need this. Central informer. Not going to need that. This is the center console. It has the transfers and the accelerometer. Not going to need that because this is for the four-wheel drive. Central electric. Going to change this for something more modern. Alarm. Some buttons. Some more buttons. This all is 4.5 kilos. Next is the Anaconda box. This is full of the harnessing. This is the rear harness. Obviously going to replace this with something else. This is the forward harness, and it is an absolute beast. It has connectors for things that is not even possible to use all of them because you will have to have a sunroof and a convertible at the same time. 12 kilos. 12 kilos of cables. Last but not least, this is the junk box. This is just loose cables and whatever. It's another 4.5 kilos. As promised in the beginning of this episode, I'm gonna cut out some of the unnecessary brackets on the inside of the car here. So we have like the ones here in the middle for the console. We have the rear seats. We have probably to mount the rear seats as well. For the convertible, some things in the front. Gonna try to take it out using this guy here. They're spot welded in place, most of these. So I'm gonna try to just cut through the spot weld and see if I can get it to detach nicely from the chassis. First one off, got a pretty nice clean cut there as well. I got the ones up here off. I'm working on the one for the convertible connection here. This one is pretty good, but my compressor is a little bit underpowered, so I have to wait a lot for the compressor to recharge. All of it done. Got all of the brackets that I intend to get out of the car. You might ask yourself, why am I doing this? This is really just only for the aesthetics of it. I want the inside of the car to be completely flush. The only thing you'll see is the ECU and now the PDM module that I'll have on the inside of the car. So it's really all about the aesthetics, this piece of it. Weight-wise, I weighed the brackets that I took out. It's 0.5 kilo. Doesn't make a dent on what I'm trying to achieve here. But it will look a lot nicer. And I think that's reason enough. That's just about the end for today. We took 21.5 kilos out of the car today. 20 of that being the electrical system with the various components such as the central electric, such as the rear electric, central informer, all-wire harnessing for a lot of features that this car was never even equipped with. We took 0.5 kilo of silly brackets and stuff just for the aesthetics of it and to get a flush interior so that it looks really nice once it's done. You must be thinking, what's going in the place of this? Because obviously all of these components serve a purpose. And I'm going to change to something much more modern. It looks just about like this. It's not exactly this component. It's called a PDM, Power Distribution Module. It's a semiconductor technology that has relays and fuses and all of it built in. Can connect to CAN bus as well, so you can replace all your buttons with panels. It's really neat and it's really, really compact. Also going to change to Motorsport harnessing. I'm going to need 3 of these, 2 of them for the car and 1 of them for the engine. These are about 1.3 kilos each, so it's going to be 4 kilos of this, and this one is just below 0.5 kilo. So all in all, we're saving 17 kilos going this route. With this, I still haven't done anything with the forward harnessing of the car. I'm sure I'm going to do something with that once I get to the ABS and take things out for the four-wheel drive of the car. That's the end of episode 166. Thank you for watching. If you like this, subscribe to my channel. Next time in episode 149, we're going to cut a big hole in the roof here, and we're going to prepare the interior for blasting. Thanks for watching.